22nd, 1963, a festive and cheerful crowd gathered in Dallas. The city's residents took to the streets to welcome the 35th President of the United States, John Kennedy. The charming and smiling head of state was genuinely loved by Americans. The weather matched the mood, warm and sunny. At 12:30, the presidential motorcade turned onto Houston Street. At that moment, shots rang out. For a few seconds, people were stunned, trying to comprehend what was happening, and then they scattered in horror. True chaos ensued. Some people fell to the ground, covering their heads with their hands. Parents tried to shield their children from the bullets. Women screamed and cried.
John Kennedy was wounded in the neck and head, and as a result of the shots, another person was injured. It was Texas Governor John Connally. They were all promptly taken to the hospital, but John Kennedy could not be saved. He died in the hospital half an hour after the shots. Just a few hours after the incident, a suspect in Kennedy's murder, Lee Harvey Oswald, was apprehended. He was a former Marine who worked at a textbook warehouse, which was located very close to the incident. It was on the upper floor of this warehouse that the shots were fired, and a rifle with Oswald's fingerprints and spent shell casings was found there.
Lee Harvey Oswald became the only official suspect in the case. Nevertheless, many still believe that he either did not kill the president at all or did not act alone.
This is indeed one of the most high-profile murders of the 20th century. Perhaps it remains high-profile. Also because the possible killer of Kennedy, Lee Harvey Oswald, was killed 2 days after Kennedy's own assassination. In fact, no charges were brought against him. That's why several conspiracy theories emerged after this.
All these years, conspiracy theorists have not missed the opportunity to share their conclusions and arguments with the general public. One of the most popular theories states that the American president was eliminated by the KGB. To prove this theory, its supporters cite this photograph, taken on the day of the assassination. Due to the attire that was atypical for American women of that time, the woman in the photograph was dubbed the Babushka Lady.
She is compared to Russian grandmothers, a thick headscarf, despite the fact that it was quite a warm, sunny day. She was also inexplicably wearing a shapeless coat that concealed her figure, and we can't even determine exactly how old. She was approximately maybe 40, maybe 50 years old. Very unclear.
Looks like a Russian, so definitely Russian, conspiracy theorists decided, and claimed Lady Babushka is the wife of Soviet defector Yuri Nosenko. He was allegedly the handler of Lee Harvey Oswald when the American lived in the USSR.
The thing is, Oswald sympathized with Marxism, according to him, and voluntarily came to the Soviet Union in '59. He lived here until '62 and got acquainted with life not only in Moscow, but mostly he lived in the city of Minsk, where he was provided with a furnished apartment. In a good, prestigious building, he worked at a local machine building plant.
Supporters of the theory of KGB involvement believe that Yuri Nosenko was merely pretending to be a defector, while in reality, he continued to work for the Soviet Union all along. And allegedly, he was the puppet master who forced Lee Harvey Oswald to kill America's darling. Therefore, it is quite logical that Nosenko's wife could have found herself in the thick of events that day and then disappeared without a trace. Of course, evidence of this theory cannot be found in any serious source.
Personally, I believe that naturally, the KGB, the Committee for State Security, is absolutely not involved in this murder. Obviously, the roots need to be sought in the country where these murders occurred.
For For a long time, the man in this photo was also considered at least an accomplice in the Kennedy assassination. The blame for this was an ordinary black umbrella. Not only did the accessory itself look strange on such a fine day, but its owner also behaved extremely suspiciously.
When the presidential limousine drew level with this man, he opened the umbrella for some reason and waved it, clockwise. After that, a shot was fired. The man with the umbrella immediately began to leave the scene of the crime.
While investigators were trying to establish the man's identity, conspiracy theorists were eagerly speculating. They claimed that it would have been easy to hide a poison dart in the umbrella to paralyze John Kennedy before the shot, or even disguise a firearm as it. Unlike the lady grandmother, whose identity was never definitively established, this witness to the president's murder eventually revealed not only his name, Louis Stephen Witt, but also the motive behind his strange behavior.
This man appeared 15 years later. He explained what that very black umbrella meant. He specifically stated that it was a reference to British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain and his attitude towards Nazism.
Neville Chamberlain had a habit of always carrying a black umbrella. This quirk was often played upon by cartoonists. Louis Stephen Witt also made a reference to it. With the umbrella, he wanted to express his dissatisfaction with the fact that the Kennedy family, like the British Prime Minister, supported the policy of appeasement towards Hitler before World War II. For some reason, Witt was convinced that the subtle hint of an open black umbrella would definitely be understood by the president.
Summing up his story, he said the following words: "If there were a category in the record book for people who were in the wrong place at the wrong time doing the wrong things, I would be number one in that position."
With this admission, Louis Stephen Witt put an end to the mysterious story of the man with the umbrella. However, now conspiracy theory enthusiasts have a new pastime, looking for the next hints of a sensation in the materials recently declassified by Donald Trump. But experts are sure there is nothing extraordinary there. The documents were kept in archives for decades not to hide the truth about John Kennedy's assassination. Thus, American intelligence agencies tried to keep the names of agents and their methods of operation during the Cold War a secret. After all, many of the schemes and techniques have stood the test of time and are still relevant today.